Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heads Together. I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen, your host, and I am here with Jennifer Wilner. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Bon. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show today, Wednesday, November 17th. Really happy to be back. I finally caught my breath. We flew back on Sunday from Colorado Springs, where we were doing the final BTUA of the year. And it was a big one. We had a great group who came together, and we our goal was to create a COVID protocol that would make everybody feel comfortable and safe. And in the end, Jen, I mean, we had students from how many states did we figure out?
Um,
I think it was
15,
13, 14 states, right?
Yeah.
So so the question became, for the assistance of the world, how can we figure out to get on airplanes from all over the place and come together in a room and feel safe? So we created a protocol that we used in Houston, but we refined it a little bit this time. We asked for hi, Heidi, welcome. Hey, you made it back. Yay. Heidi is one of those who is with us in Colorado Springs from one of those 14 states. Hey, Sandy from Canada, welcome. We're talking about the COVID protocol that we had in place in Colorado Springs. And Heidi, I welcome you to add your comments in the chat. This show is about sharing up to the minute information about what's happening in the workplace. And I think it's interesting to speak about what COVID protocols are in place. Hi, Stephanie Hand. Stephanie was also with us out in Colorado Springs. So if you have anything to share about the COVID protocol, I was sharing that we made proof of vaccination mandatory before anybody came, and I received zero pushback on doing that. We let everybody know ahead of time that we would be doing rapid tests on the morning of day one. So it's the nasal swab, and it takes 15 minutes to process. And we also did temperature checks the morning of each morning. And so that combination of givens made it so no one chose to use a mask. We made masks optional, and didn't say you have to wear one or you don't have to wear one, but no one chose to wear one. So it's really interesting. Now, we did something else, and Jen, you were really helpful with this. In fact, can you put up the wristband photo, please? We took a photo on day one. We got as many arms as we could in there. We had about 27 students. I don't think we have 27 arms in there, but you'll notice a bunch of colorful wristbands. One of the things we did is we purchased, thank you, Amazon. And Jen, you can take it down now.
Sure.
We purchased wristbands, and the one I'm wearing right now says COVID-19 low risk. You see it's green, and it says low risk. And we bought green, yellow, and red. And that way, without words, we could communicate to each other how we feel about, proximity to other people. And so it was a choice. You didn't have to put on a wristband at all. B, you got to choose what color you wanted to wear. We also had other wristbands available in the room, which simply say COVID-19 vaccinated. And those are multicolors. And, you can buy them online, easy. And I have to say, several people in our class said, as they plan ahead for event planning, that they're going to use the idea. Jen, I think Heidi has something to say.
Yes, she does. Heidi says, since meeting with Bonnie and learning from her, I have found my voice. Yay! I have learned to advocate for myself and know that I'm worth it.
You bet.
So, COVID protocol was spot on, and I'm forever grateful. Being a cancer survivor and having such steps in place is so reassuring. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Heidi, you know what? That had gone out of my head. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, like there's so much that there are things we know about people and then things we don't know, and we don't know in what way you might be compromised. I mean, it's generally known Vicky Sokol Evans is a cancer survivor. And, that's in our heads also as we travel around. And it just seems to me that this was a way to have everybody relax and feel safe in the room. And Stephanie is sharing that it did feel like a very safe environment. Honestly, I'm admitting that after like the first hour, it was a lot to do in that first period of time. We're taking temperature checks and doing COVID protocol, but most assistants know the feeling of just be prepared. You're prepared for it. You set up a spot and make it happen. And after that, it kind of flew out of my head and we weren't even thinking about it. And people were shaking hands and getting to know each other. And there was even some hugging happening in the room, like radical. I have to say that after a while, it felt very normal. And
felt like old times.
Pardon?
Felt like old times.
It did. It actually did feel like old times. And, as we head for Thanksgiving and people are going to be coming together, I certainly hope that, we're heading towards more of a normalcy when it comes to being able to be in a room together, because we've had quite enough of being separate and apart. Debbie, we wish you could have been there with us also, but we have announced our 2022 schedule. It's on betheultimateassistant.com. We're going to be in New York and then the West Coast of the United States, not sure what city yet, then Chicago, and then we're ending the year in Jacksonville, Florida, in my own backyard here. Hi, Daniel. Welcome to our program today. We've been talking about COVID protocols, and welcome any of you to share what you're doing in your office or at your events, because I think we're still evolving as the reality of the variants are coming out, and it does vary from state to state. As we all got ready to go to Colorado Springs, Colorado is one of the hotspots in the country right now, but fortunately, Colorado Springs was not, really going crazy, thankfully. Edwina, hi. No, as of right now, nothing in Atlanta, although we sure would love to speak with you if there's a special event that we want to create as part of the year. I have shared with this audience that I am busy getting ready to publish my second book in 2022, and that will happen in the middle of 2022. So my hope is that a city like Atlanta will be on the book tour along the way. So you all are not done with me, for sure. So, I haven't spent much time in Colorado. Have you, Jen? Have you spent time in Colorado?
Haven't been there yet.
Well, I'm so happy that one of the assistants at Vectress, where we were hosted, reminded me about how the altitude is in Colorado Springs, that, probably everybody's heard about Denver being the mile-high city. Well, that's 5,000 feet, right? Colorado Springs is 6,200 feet. Now, I'm a person who lives at sea level. I live at the ocean. So it's a thing. It's a thing. So if any of you are planning events or you're in Colorado, I have to say I never experienced the effect of altitude more than this trip. It was really interesting. And the Air Force that's based there, the Air Force Academy, is based in Colorado Springs. And they have this really great website where they share the kinds of things you should do if you're at an extra high altitude.
Cool.
So, it was really cool. And we were able to give our students a heads up about that ahead of time. So, what we find is if assistants get all of this info ahead of time, there's pretty much nothing we can't solve. Yeah, Edwin, I'd love to see you again too. So so Colorado Springs was a really interesting experience, and I'm just delighted that our students attended healthy and they left healthy, and that is of course the most important thing as we continue to do public events where we bring people together, and we're on airplanes and trains and cars, and we just don't have control over who we're coming in contact with, but we certainly have control over getting proof of vaccination ahead of time. Hi, Terry. Hope you're feeling better. Oh, your son lives in Boulder. I don't even know if Boulder is even higher than Colorado Springs, but man, it is absolutely a thing, and you need to drink tons of water. And I laughed because the Air Force Academy wrote in their website that you should eat lots of carbs. And I'm thinking to myself, awesome.
Hooray!
We're all being given permission to eat lots of carbs. So that's
fantastic.
Let's see. Next week is Thanksgiving, right? And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of posting going on about gratitude, and I will be no different. That there's a lot to be grateful for as we get here. Here we are in mid-November of 2021, and it just feels like we've been through something of a war these last couple of years. It just feels like we've been tested, doesn't it, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's important to say, Terry's sharing that Boulder is only 5,200, just similar to Denver. So yeah, I mean, these are the things that assistants have to care about, right? We have to do the research. So I don't know where each of you are going to be on Thanksgiving, but I hope you are surrounded by loved ones and are able to be in a room together with other human beings, because it's certainly time. Elizabeth has a very lovely comment. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hey, Elizabeth.
That you're grateful for administrative professionals and the work we are doing for anti-bullying. Yes, it is super important that we keep addressing the disrespectful issues that are in the workplace. And I, for one, am not going to stop talking about it until it's a non-issue, until assistants tell me that this is no longer a problem. Then you can count on Bonnie Low-Kramen to discuss that. So thanks, Elizabeth. And I'm grateful for you too. I'm grateful for each and every person on this call. And I'm especially grateful for Jennifer Wilner. Jen, I really, as we head to another year, we just celebrated 9 years together.
9 years.
Yeah. And I'm going to just say publicly that at our Thanksgiving table next week, you are absolutely one of the people I'll be thinking about. I just couldn't do this without you.
Thank you.
It's really wonderful. Monica, you're watching on LinkedIn. It's really I'm happy to have you here. On this show, you are welcome to present questions and raise issues that you're wanting to get feedback from me on, from Jen on, and from each other. That's what this show is really about. As the day of Heads Together comes, I start frantically making a list, because there are so many things that I want to share about with you. One is that one of our really fabulous students who's based in Seattle, he is a talented chief of staff, and he's actively looking for new work right now in Seattle. So if you are if you know about any great positions in Seattle, I invite you to include it in the chat or to reach me directly, Bonnie@BonnieLowKramen.com. I believe that this forum I invite that we can help each other here find new work, solve issues, address the tough stuff, which we have done on this show. I mean, those of you who've watched before, there's nothing that's off limits, right? We've talked about sexual harassment. And in fact, if you caught the episode with Stacey Pinkerton, who is one of Bill Cosby's 63, one of 63 of his rape victims, I'm inviting her onto the show again. And if any of you are interested in being a guest on this show, if there's something burning that you have to say or that you want to discuss, I'd really like to hear about it. Bonnie at BonnieLow-Kramen.com, or send a note to Jen. A couple of weeks ago, we discussed the Global Skills Matrix on this program. The Global Skills Matrix is a structure for the administrative staffs of the world, and it is a document that was 6 years in the making. Jen, I'm going to ask you to put that link in the chat because we now have the replay. The replay goes 77 minutes. The replay is a conversation of a webinar. It's a conversation between me, Lucy Brazier, who is the editor-in-chief of Executive Support Magazine, and Lucy Chamberlain, who is a recruiter based in the UK. So we had the two Brits and the American on this webinar, where Lucy Brazier, has slides, and she discusses what this Global Skills Matrix actually is. It is really, it has great potential to transform companies when it comes to, offering a framework to HR and to leaders about how do we move forward with the administrative staff into 2022 and beyond. It's, as you'll hear on the webinar, the three of us certainly agree that it's time for proper job descriptions and detailed, accurate titles for the role, detailed job descriptions, and compensation that is fair, commensurate for the role. So Jen, thanks for putting the replay in the chat. We posted it on LinkedIn as well, but I just urge you, feel free to put your comments in about the matrix if you heard the webinar already, but please do take a listen and share it with your HR directors and leaders and your colleagues, because I think everybody would agree that none of us can make change alone, that we're going to need this to be a collaborative effort. Mm-hmm. Debbie's sharing, we're back to masks, and Boulder's pretty safe, even though our rates are high. And Debbie also goes on to say that you're all wearing masks inside. So at this point, I imagine vaccination is not mandatory or proof of vaccination, and therefore that's making masks important to wear. Yeah, it's going to vary from company to company. We're still hearing about companies that are not going back full time yet. We're hearing about companies that are testing it out, 2 to 3 days in the office and making kind of a reservation for a desk. It's those terms we're hearing about, hoteling, hoteling and hot desking. All kinds of new terms that we're hearing about in this workplace of 2021 as we head into 2022. So let's see. Next week, I have made a decision to take a road trip and be with family next week. And therefore, we're going to take a break from Heads Together for next week. I didn't want to make you all dizzy watching me in the car. So Jen and I are going to take next week off, and then we will come back on, Wednesday, December 1st, Jen?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday, December 1st with the next edition of Heads Together. and I'm actively seeking guest speakers, guests for this show who are eager to share a burning idea. And for those of you who might have missed it and just have this like random pieces of news, I shared on the program a week or two ago that I've been selected to do a TEDx talk at TEDx Rutgers Camden, Camden, New Jersey, on January 22nd of 2022, and it is a dream come true. I am so excited, and wow, are they diligent about, staying on top of the process. It's, if any of you are interested or curious about the whole TEDx process, most assistants have watched TED Talks and TEDx Talks. TEDx Talks are independent events, separate and apart from the big TED events. Yeah, I want to thank you so much. Yeah, it's exciting news about that. So we're not going to be here next Wednesday. You have that. So I welcome any questions, comments. Jen, what am I forgetting? You might as well put up, if you can put up the scroll.
Yeah, sure.
And, yeah, so part of the scroll is about BTUA On Demand. We have our On Demand course available with a coupon code, BTUA Bonus OD, to save $300. My calendar is booking up for 2022. So if you are interested in training, if there's budget left over from 2021, oftentimes companies will urge you to spend it in 2021, even if the training isn't happening until 2022. So if that is interesting to you, then please let's set up a time to talk. And then Jen put up the link for the replay for the Global Skills Matrix. We have so much important work to do together. Those of you on this call right now, and if any of this is compelling to you, then I just urge you to please share it with your colleagues. A few weeks ago, I decided that one way to end Heads Together would be to share a quote that for whatever reason is resonating on a particular week. I welcome your favorite quotes too. Stacy is asking a question. Why don't we put up
how many admin EA roles have changed?
As to how many EA roles have changed?
I mean, since it's because of the pandemic, I guess.
Well, I mean, curious how many roles have changed. I think there is a lot of movement in the role, Stacy. Generally speaking, there's a reference to 2021 being the year of the job description, that the pandemic created an awareness that many of the assistant roles, that the work has changed, and that the assistants who are still working are, the other word is resilient. It is really created a need for resilience and going with it. An easy example of that would be that, travel came to a screeching halt with the pandemic. And so what did that mean for the assistant role? And what assistants found themselves doing, and I certainly was urging this, was to fill the gaps, to look for the gaps. One of the gaps that many assistants saw was with technology and with, jumping on Teams, and, companies had the software for Office 365 and Microsoft Teams, but there was very little training available for it. And so assistants found themselves stepping in to offer to streamline it and help that process. The other area, Stacy, that assistants were finding themselves really useful in, I refer to them as gaps, was onboarding. for a time during the pandemic, there were companies that weren't even hiring new people. Why? They needed them, but why were they not hiring them? Was because they didn't have a way to onboard them virtually. But assistants happen to be really good at that. So that's one way. Another way the role has changed now with people. Okay, so now there were a lot of people hired during the pandemic. They figured out how to onboard them virtually. Now those same people are going back into the office. So now the trend is we have to re-onboard them.
Right.
And so who's doing that? It is a collaboration oftentimes between HR and executive assistants. So if that's something you really like, that's another example. Still another example is the preparation for the next crisis, disaster planning. And disaster planning, we have a lot of people on this call who lived through 9/11, which is an example of a man-made crisis, but there have been many examples since, active shooter plans that are needed. Then we have, weather, extreme, natural disasters. This year alone, between the wildfires and hurricanes, Hurricane Ida, so many examples. And then the third one, of course, is the health crisis, the pandemic. The assistants who are stepping up to be in on those meetings, to talk about the next time, the next man-made disaster, the next natural disaster, the next variant that chases assistants and staff out of the office. I think it's generally thought that these three categories of disasters, we haven't seen the last one, So those assistants who are willing to say, you know what, I'm really interested in developing a more robust, better plan for that. So Stacy, I hope that answers your question, that assistants are looking with fresh eyes what's happening in their workplaces and raising their hand and saying, I'd really like to get involved with that. Still another example is cybersecurity. Every day the hackers are getting better and better. We had a cybersecurity expert at BTUA in Colorado Springs, and there is reason to be concerned about cybersecurity. And if that is a subject that really intrigues you and you're interested in that, what I'm hearing from Erin and the experts I talk to is that there's plenty of room for assistants to get involved in these different gaps. Mm-hmm. So I welcome any feedback about those things, but that's just like the tip of the iceberg, how the role is evolving. And last thing on that is that if in fact we're calling it the year of the job description, I am urging every assistant to have as detailed a job description as possible. And if HR is not creating it, because HR is pretty overwhelmed at the moment, I'm urging assistants to create them yourself, because those job descriptions equal money. And so in the aftermath of the pandemic, in the last year, certainly, many assistants are going to HR and to their leaders and saying, this is my current job description. And it is a way to advocate for more money. So assistants have had title changes. They've had, sign off on their revised job descriptions, and they've had changes in their compensation, which I think is a really good thing. We're hearing about the Great Resignation and the war for talent. From where I sit, I'm hearing from a lot of recruiters, salaries are going up. There's a big demand for skilled, talented assistants who can come in and hit the ground running. So a few weeks ago, I started thinking about a quote to end our show with. And those of you, Stephanie and Heidi, you were with us in Colorado Springs. We had one of our fellow students, Anthony Barlow, who said something that absolutely everyone was writing down on day one after it exited his mouth. I shared this with you earlier, Jen. We were talking about when you're on a team, especially when you're leading a team, and offering constructive feedback, otherwise known as constructive criticism, And he manages a team. And what he said was this: connection before suggestion or correction. Connection before, actually, he said connection before correction or suggestion. And I wrote that down. I thought that was, what do you think of that, Jen?
I love it. I love it. So it's like, make the connection with the person before you correct or give them that.
Right. Because they're not going to be able to hear it.
Yeah.
The only reason to give constructive feedback is if you get someone's buy-in, that they actually can hear you. Mm-hmm. So that is the quote I want to leave you with today. Thanks to our BTUA student, Anthony Barlow. Connection before correction or suggestion. I hope you like that. Edwina's saying that's deep. It is deep, but think on it. And it actually applies to not only the workplace, I think, but to personal lives as well.
Absolutely.
So with that, I would like to wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving, and to know that Jen and I are deeply grateful for this opportunity every Wednesday to be here with you, to share ideas that matter. We will be back. We're taking a week off, and we will be back on Wednesday, December 1st, with another episode of Heads Together. And we love hearing from you. We love knowing, what are you excited about? What are you worried about? And I invite you to write to me, Bonnie@BonnieLow-Kramen.com. So thanks so much, Jen. Have a great Thanksgiving. And
Me too. We'll be thinking of you.
Yeah.
See you in a couple weeks, everybody.
Have a great couple of weeks. Thanks, everybody.